fall. So fall is autumn goes through, what is that, December 21st? When is the winter solstice? So winter starts December 21st, I believe. And so we got another couple months of fall. And in the mountains of Arizona, we take advantage of all of autumn. I mean, it doesn't turn winter mid-autumn like it does in the Midwest. There it goes, starts getting harsh cold. In fact, Lisa and I have been spending the last couple weeks visiting the kids in Texas. We decided to take our time coming back home, so we took a week to get home. We said we'll stay off the interstate 10 or 40, we'll go on any road in between. And so we've been to White Sands, New Mexico, Carlsbad, the Greenlee County. I've never really been to Greenlee County, which is right on the New Mexico-Arizona border. It's beautiful. It reminds me of old Arizona back in the 70s when there weren't people. There were more cows than people. It's that. It's just really pretty. We took our time. The high country, Alpine, Springerville, those are Greenlee Stafford, those areas, the high 6,000 plus, 8,000 foot, they've already flamed out. They're done. So the fall color's over. Here, we keep it going for another month at least. So your annuals, the summer annuals, petunias, geraniums, zinnias, all those summer lovers, they're going to look good till mid-November. So at least last year was mid-November. My geraniums look good until about December 1st. But when it went cold, it just went all at once. So the advice I can give you is, if you can, get some of that. You're going to be desperate. This is a class full of gardeners. You all are hard. Look around you. Your neighbor is a gardener, hardcore gardener. Otherwise, you're at a garden class the last week in October. That says something about you. So you're my peeps, okay? You're my folks that really like to garden. You're going to be disappointed if you let it go cold, and then you've got to take 3 months from December through February with nothing but rock. It's going to get to you, especially you folks from where it's a little greener. We've got more grass. Here we lose our foliage, and you're left with lunar landscapes. I mean, just dust and dirt and rock and boulders. And to have a little inspiration of color by the front door will make or break the gardener's heart. And that's where you want to be strategic with, I know I'm going to lose this. I want a pot full of pansies or kale or snapdragon or something that will stay looking good that greets me as I come and go from the front door. That'll be important for you, especially if you're new to the mountains of Arizona, this different kind of landscape. This is Southwest landscaping. So we don't have lawns to carry us. I mean, a lot of the cool season lawns, they stay green year round here. We just don't get that cold. But we mainly rock over stuff. And so what I'm doing for my name's Ken, I'm your friend, and I'm just sharing some things that work for me, and I'm sharing this not as a garden center owner, but as a fellow gardener. This is what this gardener does in our house. And so we're changing out some of our pots, freshening them up. It's amazing when you take an overgrown petunia pot that's been wreaked havoc with powdery mildew you've been fighting all season long. You take that out, put some petunias in, some things like, what do we got? Pansies. I mean, just those two things alone. You put those in a couple pots or raised bed or someplace where you can see them. By the front door, the back patio, as you look out to the dining room window or living room, you're sipping coffee, there's a light snow coming down in January, you go, gosh, I'm glad I listened to Ken. I planted some things, it looks good. I think I'll go look at my seed catalogs now. It's that kind of stuff. You want to be some sort of inspiration, because otherwise we'll lose all of our foliage, and there aren't quite enough evergreens to keep us going in the mountains. So this is when the rock stars are really going to be your spruce, pine, your shrubs like your camellias, ilex, the hollies, all those junipers, mugo pines, all those evergreens, which 20% of your landscape should be evergreens, just so that you got something to look at. Those are your anchors that keep you going through winter. So a couple things that'll look good right now. This is ornamental kale. It's related to edible kale, but it's prettier. It puts on these great big heads on them. In the spring when it warms up, usually in April, it'll bolt. has the most fragrant flower, yellow flower on it. It just stands up about like this. Frequently you'll spec these into hotel rooms, hotels or commercial settings. So as you come into the hotel, it has this fragrance fills the entire front of the commercial property. It does the same thing at your house. It just adds this fragrance to it, but it looks like this all winter long. One of my favorites that I'm replacing this with, I have a lot of javelina. They came in and ate my pumpkins right before we left. So they weren't after the flowers, they were after the pumpkins. And they just had a party. They tore one up, and they threw it around, they kicked it around. You see seed everywhere. And so if you had this out front with the pumpkins, they would for sure eat it. They don't eat this. This is coral bells, or heuchera. Don't ask me how to spell that. Heucha, I don't know. Hook. Sounds like you're hacking up a fur ball. Heuchera. So this one, it's a perennial. This one's an annual. So in the summer, this is going to flame out. This one keeps looking good year round, and it's mostly evergreen. If you go sub-zero this winter, you're not predicting that, but sometimes we get some really harsh winters. This one will die back to the ground, but mainly it looks like this year round. And so I'll use this as an evergreen perennial, so I plant it once and just always looks good. Now eventually the entire pot will be taken over by this as it crowds everything else out, and that looks good too, but heuchera, kale is foundational. Mix those with, we grow better snapdragons than anyone else in the country. Snaps, doesn't that look delicious? Looks like rabbit bait and deer and javelina, but nothing eats this. It's completely, I would call it proof, and I'm always nervous to do javelina proof. I generally go resistive, like they won't eat it generally speaking, because your herd, all of my herds, they don't like this. You see them in neighborhoods that are just ravaged by javelina. They don't eat this. And it's so pretty, comes in lots of colors. This one blooms in spring and in fall, starting to bloom again, and it will bloom through the end of the year. It's an amazing plant. When it gets done blooming, it'll have a bunch of seed heads. I'll cut those off or shave them. Then I've got this nice evergreen foliage. So it kind of has a lot going on for it. But snapdragons, we grow really well here. And it acts like a wildflower. It reseeds out in the yard and shows up in other places, which is kind of nice, as long as you can keep it under control. So, and when you take things like this, they just look good together. So something's just some bright spots. You're not going to do your entire landscape with two types of winter, crops and then summer crops, but you can have some strategic ones that are placed there that just look good. So your Thanksgiving guests come over and they go, wow, that's pretty. You've got such a green thumb. How do you do that? Well, I go over to Ken's classes and he teaches me how to. You should go too. We should go together. Okay. This is another one I like that I think is underappreciated. This is Dusty Miller. It actually does put a yellow flower on it. I don't really plant it for the flower. I don't like the flower that much. It's pretty, but it's not a rock star like snapdragons. This one's great. This one's got kind of, you're planting this for the foliage, and you plant it with things like, what did I bring up here? Something dark probably. No. Probably, yeah, the cabbage, that'd be good. Sure. The purple foliage with the silver, that looks good. And so this is an evergreen. I planted this last fall. I'm actually tired of it now. So I planted over a year ago, and now I've cut it back twice, and it still looks good. It's driving me crazy. So I kind of wanted something new in there to kind of play with. But this is, animals don't eat it. It's evergreen, looks good year round, and then in the spring it bolts and puts on this beautiful yellow flower that kind of hovers above the foliage, kind of hangs there. Not really a fragrant thing, but that's one that'll do great. And then you notice how dark the days are getting? 6 o'clock, it's dark out. That's where the Texans and New Mexicans, they have it over us with daylight savings. It stays light out longer. I mean, I came home to Arizona going, dang, it's kind of depressing. It's dark already. That's where some of your light colored perennials. This is a English ivy, but it's got the cream colored variegation to it. So if you've got something by the front door, let's say those sculptures, I've got an ivy that grows on those English kind of double palmed or towers. There's different things you can play with it. I grow it up that. But this looks better in dark spaces because it's just light colored. It's a great plant for here, and evergreen.
Does
Okay?
does it need light?
Doesn't need light. Goes in full shade. I've got one that has 0 shade. North side, under my deck, never sees the light of day ever. It's magnificent. It's almost a weed. I have to keep it off the house. So it wants to grow to the house and attach itself and then grow in and like cook dinner and have just make itself, it has its own bedroom. I don't know, it's very aggressive. So in a pot, you can control that and just keep it in check. This is another one that's famous in the winter, I think, more so than in the spring. This is periwinkle, or vinca is the Latin name. So vinca minor specifically, has these pretty little blue flowers. This is evergreen. Put the front edge of a pot, it just flows over and looks good. So you put that with things like this, and it just kind of brings each other out. Okay, some things in winter that are going to look good. And then a couple others, and then we'll get into the technical aspects. Stimulates root growth, don't worry. Don't worry. This is one you only see at the nursery, winter and very early spring. This is heath or heather. Both are kind of similar kind of plants. This is a Mediterranean pink heath. I've also got a white heath. This is an evergreen perennial that blooms in winter and early spring. So you can see the buds are really heavily budded up. This will continue to do this through March, April, it depends on the weather. And then it's just this nice fern, evergreen kind of perennial. It's a great little plant. I've grown this in full sun, full shade. It's just a nice versatile plant, but you only find it starts showing up now through March. It's a very short window. Another one that you'll only find, and I get everyone I can get my hands on, I have about 100 of these I secure every year. I've got a special grower that brings them in, special farm, they got special certifications to get them in. This is the only hardy camellia that we can grow up here. And Californians will like that. I mean, this doesn't grow a camellia flower like this size. It's more like this size, but it has more of them. It's an evergreen shrub that prefers the shadier areas. It'll take quite a bit of sun. I notice the flowers stay on much longer if you've got some shade to it. Keep it out at midday during the growing season. So here, the east, direct west side of the house, under the overhangs, under the canopy of trees, this grows really well. But you only see this showing up this time of year, and I got my entire allocation now, and I've got enough to get me through about February, and then they're just done. So it's one of those things you'll see now that you'll never see again. And there's only one place you'll find this in the area. That's at Waters Garden Center. That's the only place, I'm the only one that can get them, so yeah.
Does it do well in a pot?
It does very well in a pot, yeah. And amazingly, I found that the deer and javelina and stuff, they don't like this. They leave it alone. So it looks like they would eat on it like crazy, like red-tip Potinia. Deer love red-tip Potinia. They don't like this. They look similar, but they just don't eat them. Starts to bloom. In fact, you'll see some white ones starting to bloom over here. You can take a look at. They'll really start blooming in February, March, first part of April, through mid-spring, and then they're kind of done. And they're just this evergreen shrub. You just see them loaded up with buds.
How big is it?
They're short. I wish they grew bigger. They'll get up about like this. So I keep mine down like this size. That's where I want it. A corporate stint took me to Sacramento, Folsom area for a while, and there I grew in love with camellias, the big ones, the tropical ones, the ones that won't grow here, the ones that grow this big. You pick a flower and float it in a glass of water, just in a bowl. I mean, it's just beautiful. I wish I could grow them here. So when I found these, I went, oh, that's my hobby, gardening, and I love camellias. I'm a camellia gardener, so I kind of have a affinity for camellias. Okay, that's the only one that will go through the winters. What happens is most of the time the cold kills off camellias, and so you just got to be careful which one you're going to put into your own yard. Okay. Now,
I'm sorry, what was the first name of that camellia?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought you mentioned 2 names.
I don't mention. I've got 4 or 5 varieties of camellias: whites, pinks, reds, basically, all the same plant. They're all basically the same size flower. They come in different colors. That's the only real difference there. Okay. I mention that to you all just because there's such a tight window. If you come in April, I won't have any. They're all gone until the following fall. So every fall you get these in, and I get everyone I can. And it's an evergreen, which is great. So they look good right through winter. So, okay, shall we get into the technical aspects? What do you need to do in the yard to keep it looking good, healthy? And you're setting the stage now for next spring's growth. This is really critical for you folks that are maybe new. You've got a lot of new plants. You just put in that new backyard. Things that they're still maturing. This is going to be really critical. Now, one thing you'll find, the most important of all, and this is hard for you folks from the South, Midwest, where you've actually got topsoil. Here we don't have topsoil. We have caliche. You've never heard that word till you got here. Caliche means, I think in Native American terms, cement layer through the ground. Not really, to my Native American friends, I'm sorry, but it's like concrete. It's like a layer anywhere from just a few inches to, I've seen as thick as 18 inches. There'll be a band you'll see going through the soil, and it looks like cement. It's got this gray color to it. You'll see it in the road cuts. You'll see a road cut, you'll see this band of soil going through. It's rock hard. Water will not penetrate it. And so you don't see that anywhere but here in the Southwest. It's unique to us. You folks on that 69 corridor, oh, I feel sorry for you. Because that's where it starts and gets really hairy. That ranch, Yavapai Hills, all the way past Prescott Valley, there's lots of caliche layers out there. So here we just don't have topsoil. What that means is you're going to have to fertilize more often than you're used to. So, and let me just be upfront with you, stay away from liquid or water-soluble foods. They go through the ground so fast, the plant can't pick it up. And so it's especially for your bigger plants, trees and shrubs. Flowers, less, vegetables, less of an issue. What you really want is a slow release, granular food that slowly releases and breaks down over a long period of time. That's going to really make a difference for your plants. And you're going to do it more often. So you're probably fertilizing at least 3 times a year. If you have a lot of evergreens, 4 times. So, and if you're thinking holidays, think spring would be Easter. Summer would be 4th of July. That's right about when the monsoons hit. So you can fertilize right then. You can really get a benefit and get a burst of new flowers from your roses. You can get all those flowering things in summer to really look good. In the fall, it's Halloween right now. Is your marker for fertilizing everything in the landscape. And if you have a lot of evergreens, it's really important for deodar cedars, a lot of pines. They have what we call winter chlorosis. They turn yellow. They just get this yellow, they look pale. And so that's usually a lack of food or the pH is real high, so they get this yellow bit to it. You'll walk through a neighborhood and you go, oh, didn't fertilize, oh, didn't fertilize, oh, didn't fertilize. You can just walk through and know who's the gardeners in the neighborhood simply by the color of their evergreens. That's that winter chlorosis. It'll show up January, February is when it will really be pronounced. So you fertilize now, and what do you fertilize with? I think right here, all-purpose plant food. It's a granular food I put together years and years ago. It's organic, so it's safe for your pets, birds, a lot of you bird gardeners. You can walk out there barefoot afterwards and you'll be okay. It's not a synthetic fertilizer. It's not a petroleum-based, like a Scott's, Turf Builder, those things. I'd say stay away from those because they break down too quickly, so they're not available to the plant. This is organic, so it breaks down very slowly over a 3-month period. So you're putting this out there at 3-month intervals. All of a sudden, your plants stay greener. You really set the stage for fruit trees or buds, lilacs. If your lilacs did not bloom last spring like your neighbors did, it's a food issue. So you fertilize now for the spring bloom. Forsythias, quince, all those spring bloomers, really critical. It's using the food now you put down to form those buds. Does that make sense? Number one thing to do, fertilize. It's fall, your timing is perfect. Number 2, especially if you're in that chaparral zone where junipers and pinyon pines are, a lot of us, the ranch, I would say all of Williamson Valley, those areas, all the way north past Paulden, we've got a lot of that chaparral country. Scale. There's a bug that sucks the life out of pinyon pines. And some of you bought your house, your lot, because of that character pinyon pine that's in the front yard. It's magnificent. It's hundreds of years old. If you're to lose that, there's no way you can recover. Those are the plants you really, really want to take care of. And so there, I recommend putting Plant Protector. It's a liquid. It's like an antibiotic. If you really want to dumb it down or really make it simplified, like an antibiotic for trees. So especially those that are prone to get bugs. Scale specifically, or the ponderosa pine, they'll get bark beetle. You'll see holes in the trunk where they start to weep. If the trunks of your trees are weeping at all, there's a little tiny beetle, as cute as can be, only like 1/8 inch size, tiny thing that will take down entire sections of the forest. That's bark beetle or Ips beetle. This is one you want to put on those ponderosas that are really valuable. Now some of you are on acreage, you can't do the entire forest, but you can do the ones that are really valuable. That pine tree that's growing up through the deck. I mean, if that dies, what do you do? I mean, there's no way to replace that. You want to protect those. So you put this on now, it will absorb that through the cambium layer, through that living wood underneath the bark, and then it taints that, so when the bugs come in and eat the tree, it keeps them at bay. Okay, so this is something you put on. I can't emphasize this enough. For you, those of you that have pinyon pines, this would be, I would say, would be a critical thing for you. Okay, if you don't have any pines, skip this. You don't need it. Okay, but a lot of us, we are in pine and juniper forests. This is why we live here. Take care of those and nurture those. And some of you folks are overthinking this. You're going, well, Ken, that thing's been there alive for 200 years by itself. Why can't it keep going? Well, it didn't have a neighborhood surrounding it, and all the water's been diverted. So the plants now in your neighborhood are much more dependent on you than ever before. That's where the gardener's green thumb. Hey, Vincent, what you doing, big man? This is Vincent Price. He's our company mascot. Those of you that have been around for a while, you know that, but anyway, he likes to greet folks. So anyway, the plants are more dependent on you than you may realize. So you've actually diverted natural rain flow. You've got more rooftop, which heats things up and create heat islands. Just take care of them. Put your gardener's touch, and it'll really make a difference. Okay. Weeds. So we cover weeds. Have you noticed weeds are growing now faster than ever? These are our winter weeds. If you don't do a couple things, there's one weed that's my nemesis. Oh, it drives me crazy. Well, dandelions. Actually, there's several. But the main one is, hey, big man. Dandelions are bad. They come back by seed. But the main one that comes back is an annual grass. It only comes back by seed. It does not come back by roots. Our foxtail. That's the one that puts on that burr that goes through your sock and wants to come out your other side. I mean, it's just like, it's your dogs will step on it. It wreaks havoc. You got pets. I mean, I've had more vet bills by foxtail than any other thing. Two things. One, put down right away, when you put your fertilizers down, put weed and grass stopper. Can you get that in? Does that look okay? Weed and grass stopper. It's a must.
Careful what you say, your mom's listening.
Oh, good. Hey, Mom. How you doing? Anyway, this is a granular. You put it down and it keeps the seed from germinating. This is really critical for areas where you've had some real kind of problems. Tumbleweeds are real thick. Goat head, the one that has that burr with the spikes coming out of it, your dogs step on it and go, ouch. That's an annual. So you want to put this down in those areas where you've had more weed issues. Okay, it really cuts down the weeding. There's two things in gardening I really despise. I don't like watering. This is hard for some of you. Some of you, your hobby is not gardening. Some of you, your hobby is watering. Yeah, that's your hobby. I don't like that. So I put computerized everything. If it's not on a computer, an irrigation timer that makes it go, I'm not interested. And then weeds. Weeds are just work. Weeds and work both start with W. Neither one are good. Okay, so I use this twice a year. This is the most important one for those winter weeds because they're the hardest to kill. When you start using Roundup now through May, really, Roundup is totally ineffective. You'll spray it and then it just turns yellow and comes back with a vengeance. It's because the nights are so cool that it shuts down and stops growing. So here I put this down and I virtually have no weeds. So I have a few, but I'm consistent with this. I put it down now, and I put it down right before the 4th of July rains start to hit. So into June, first part of July. Okay, makes sense? Yes?
We have a place where birdseed falls, but there's weeds that grow in there. Is that useful for there?
It will. So he's got bird seed, a bird feeder, and the Milo and stuff are coming down. It's becoming a problem. So yes, it will keep the seed from germinating. Also, you can use this around plants like roses, rosemary, that kind of stuff. I've killed my wife's rosemary by spraying some weed killer I shouldn't have, and I got a little too close, got that out good enough. And it died like that. Well, you can put this down and it keeps the weeds from coming up through the junipers, through the cotoneaster, through the rosemarys and things, and you don't have to worry about it killing. Anything that's already growing does not affect them. It only affects the seed and little tiny seedlings. Okay, makes sense? Got you covered? Should be safe with pets, although my areas where there's pets, I'll generally wait till a rainstorm. I'm the crazy one you see in the rain going, throwing it out there. So once it gets in the soil, not an issue. Or if it's a real busy area where they're active, I'll water it in. So water activates it. You should have a rain event within 30 days after putting down on the ground. But if it's an area where I'm worried about my pets, because there's Bailey, our little Scotty, he's the other mascot. So there I'll kind of water things in to activate it.
He has plastic under a lot of stuff, and then the dust is kind of nipped in there just enough to grow.
That's a good point. We should cover that. So she's got plastic or fabrics. She's got a weed barrier underneath her rock, and then dust, and this is really what happens. The rock breaks down. That's why you really, an insider's tip, this is kind of the landscaper's side of things, really verify the quality of your rock. There are different grades of rock, believe it or not. And it's based on how quickly does it break down. So some rock stays together better, so it stays intact. Some crush and break down and turn into dust. And so you'll get this weed area for the weeds to grow. So what do? You can put the weed and grass preventer down over top of your rock, which actually is not a bad idea. I know it seems like overkill, but for your area, it does keep the seed from germinating. Also, like in the brick, like here we've got acres of brick, like pavers. I've got the same thing at my house, and weeds will start coming up. It drives me crazy. And they're actually hard to get out of there because they're rooted down into there. I'm nervous telling you this, but there is a place for vegetation killer. Be careful. Now, with that being said, be really careful with this. This will kill trees. It'll kill everything. So do not use this underneath your trees. It kills the soil, kills everything. Nothing's going to grow. Okay, so here I'll mix up a can of it and I'll water it into my brick, or down the driveway, or at the fence line where I don't want weeds to grow more permanently. This kills the soil. Now, if you come in and ask me, Ken, I want that vegetative soil killer, I'll quickly try to talk you out of it, unless you know where to really use this, because I've seen more mistakes made with this than positive. So I've seen more plants killed with this. Also, this stuff is very water soluble. It moves into the soil, kills the roots, and doesn't let anything else grow there. I've also seen neighbors above you use this. A rainstorm comes, goes down the wash, kills the tree down there. Just be really careful. But in my pavers, I love this stuff because it keeps the weeds from coming up. With that green moss that starts growing in between all the pavers. Okay, if you like an English garden, that's kind of good. I'm more anal about things. I like things perfect and clean and neat. I don't like moss growing in between the pavers, and so I kill that off with this stuff. So there's a place for this where you can take advantage of it. And then lastly, then we'll leave weeds.
Can you use that in the winter?
You can use it anytime. Winter, summer, fall, doesn't matter. It's going to kill the soil. It's going to kill everything.
How often do you use it? Just once?
It says it works for like a year. I find I get 6 to 9 months out of it, and then I have to reapply. And I don't do it everywhere. I tend to spot treat. So as I see them come up every couple of months, I'll go, oh, there's a spot I missed. I'll do that area. So I'm less aggressive than some because I know it's so dangerous. But I've got acres of pavers out here where I don't want to, and I've got to pay people to actually do it. I'm not doing it myself. Employees are doing it at a very high rate. I don't want them weeding, I want them helping you with plants. And so I just kill off stuff in the pavers, in between the tree racks, that kind of stuff where I know plants aren't growing. I'm okay with that. In a flower bed, ooh, don't use it there because your soil's dead for a year or more. So, okay.
And it's granular, right?
This is water-based.
Okay.
So you mix it up in a watering can, and then you sprinkle it around like fairy dust or something, like a fertilizer, only it's death in liquid form for all plants. Be really careful. I see the big companies promote this as the solution to all weeds. I just see so many mistakes with this. But in the right place, it can really reduce the labor you have in weeding things. I hate weeding. That's my thing. Also, Roundup, skip it. It's not going to work from this point through May. Just put it on the shelf and go, done for you this year. It's not going to work now. Okay? The ones you want to use for, let's say, dandelions are already this big. They're already growing. So there I've switched to Weed Beater Ultra. This is the competitor to Roundup. It's a newer science. And it really works better at the higher altitudes. Because once the nights get cool, the plants stop growing. It just doesn't absorb. This is used like Roundup, pump up sprayer. You trigger it, you get to spray it. This makes like 16 gallons or so. But then this is what's going to work now through winter. Okay, it'll kill off dandelions even January. It'll kill them dead. Okay, so you're shifting gears because of our altitude that this plays out. This is really hard for the Scottsdale, Phoenix, Tucson folks to wrap their head around. They think we're just like desert, just like the whole state is desert. The whole state is not like desert. Why would you want to live down there in that, it was 110? Why would you live in Phoenix? I don't understand. Come up to God's country. It's nicer up here. So anyway, the plants are different. How they react, how the weeds react are different. And so Weed Beater Ultra really changes the game on weeds. Okay? Do we cover weeds? That's all I know about weeds. Okay? Yes?
I've heard a couple of places recently about using vinegar on your weeds.
Vinegar, and I do have a vinegar based, and it will work. And it's down there, it's called Burnout. It's a really strong, it's vinegar, and they added it with an oil, so it actually works better. If you just go to Costco and get the thing of vinegar, no, not strong enough. We need stronger than that, okay? This needs to be like 50%, needs to be strong, stronger than what you can buy over the shelf. So and then you need to mix it with an oil, or just, our weeds are so, they got such a waxy coat to them, it just beads up and rolls off. You gotta have an adhesive to it to make it kill. The Burnout does work very well, except it doesn't work on perennials. The main one right now, ragweed. That's one your allergies are going crazy with. It's a real pretty little plant, but it throws off a lot of pollen. That one's a perennial, it comes back by roots. If you throw Burnout on that, it would come back from the roots. You have to be really persistent with it, keep it, not let it grow. So that's where the Weed Beater Ultras are better. This time of year, I would say. Midwinter, I think it'd be different. Burnout would be real good. Okay. Yeah.
In my gravel, I've got either Creeping Charlie or Spurge.
Yeah.
Roundup isn't working.
Right now, it'll work until you get below 45 degrees at night, which is
What
any
can
moment.
I use to take care of it?
Two things. So he's got spurge. He's got things creeping in the rock. Okay. It's a nuisance. And obviously he's a detail guy. He likes perfect. You can tell. You can know who the nurses, accountants, doctors, engineers are. You can tell because perfect. I kind of bent that way too. There I would use this kind of stuff. Spread this. A bag of this goes 5,000 square feet. It goes a long ways. I would put that over my rock just to keep the spurge from coming back. That's an annual. It comes back by seed, only by seed. So that creeping area, it's now throwing off seed that will come back and haunt you next spring. It's going to be even worse next year. So I put the weed and grass preventer down to keep them at bay. Okay, and then I would probably switch to the Weed Beater Ultra just to keep them in check. And I just wouldn't let them get started again next year. Just don't let them once they get creeping, it's a nightmare. Goat head's the worst. It's a cute little taproot, and this thing turns into this big, and then it's underneath, it's got thousands, maybe that's an exaggeration, hundreds upon hundreds of seed. underneath that will come back next year to form new weeds. So you really want to keep up on them, okay? The other one too, you're in the planting season. Most of our annuals that grow here, they only like to grow where there's no competition. So open ground. They love rock lawns, the driveway, where there's no competition from any kind of ground cover grass or any of that. As soon as you introduce a creeping juniper or cotoneaster or anything that grows low, and a vinca or something, all of a sudden they stop coming up there. But they don't like the competition. They like to grow where it's open space. It's all just for them. So if now's the time to introduce maybe some competition for all those weeds, okay? Especially if you've seen some erosion areas where maybe the rain that we had this year kind of got the rock to float. That's where you really put in some erosion control, aka also known as weed control. Okay, we done with weeds? That's okay. Interest in weeds. Weeds are bad, but you can get ahead of them. Okay. Let's see. Where was I at? Oh, there are a whole nother series of insects that will start showing up, and their main diet are pine trees, but they'll float over to your aspens, your apples, almost everything else. Roses. There's a huge aphid called a tree aphid. It's like a regular rose aphid on steroids. It's related. It's not the same, but they love to eat pine trees, and their wing, they'll get onto almost everything. Keep an eye out for it. It shows up every fall, and the way people describe it, they go, I've got spiders all over my trees. These spiders are taking over. It's not a spider, it's a tree aphid. They pierce the stem, suck the life out of it. They can cause some damage. Usually not death. They'll just cause tip burn and that kind of stuff. So if you see that, multi-purpose insect spray is probably the #1 killer to get it up. I mean, these are harder to find. The symptom will be the rock and the plants underneath that tree will start to get this wet, shiny look. You see that. I mean, I can drive down a neighborhood at 50 miles an hour and go, oh, aphids, aphids, aphids. I can just spot them like that. Because of the sheen underneath the plant, you go, oh, that's got aphids in it. And people go, how do you know? I'm going, I just know, trust me. Well, how do you know? Because up on the top of that, it's got aphids, and so you'll need a hose and sprayer, something to get up there a ways. You want to coat it down with this stuff, and it will kill them off.
What's it called again?
This is called multi-purpose insect spray. It's one we put together mainly for bark beetle and the tree aphids, that kind of stuff. Okay? Yes?
Is that what causes speckles all over my car when I park in?
Yes, that's what causes speckles all over your car. Isn't that a nuisance, all that sap? It's called aphid dew or honeydew, or aphid poo is what it is. It's excrement of aphids spitting off the sap. And so that's what's causing that. If you spray that down that area, it will stop, it will kill off the aphids. Also, that the multi-purpose, this stuff has a repelling action to it. So they're flying around right now going, I want new, I'm not willing to compete. I want the tree all to myself, so looking for new food sources. And the longer the fall season is, the worse it gets. I just looked at the 2-week forecast. It's glorious like this for the next 2 weeks, which means it'll give it even worse. It'll compound. This one insect that you'll find here is unique to us that are maybe more of a nuisance. And the way you tell, the speckles or that glistening underneath, that's how you know. Okay? Yeah.
I have an aspen. Should I be spraying it to protect it?
So you've got an aspen, and should you spray it to protect it? I'm not an advocate to just spray just for spray's sake. I like to wait till I see an issue. The main thing with aspens, one bit of advice I give you, because we have so many aspens here. Aspens are prone to leaf spot. Disease and aspen go together. They just kind of, if you have an aspen long enough, you're going to get some spotting on the leaves. You'll get this blackened edge to it, kind of stuff. The main thing with that's a spore. It's like athlete's foot of the foliage. What that is, okay? It's a bacteria eating the sugars in the leaf. The main thing is, as they drop, clean all those leaves up, and do not compost them. Throw them in the trash, get them off your property. You don't want them anywhere near. Don't leave any of the leaves on your property. Clean them up as best you can. Cleanliness is next to godliness pertains to aspens. So because of that leaf spot. And birds and stuff will come in next spring. They'll burrow around going, where are the worms, where are the worms? Come back up on the new leaves that come out next spring, and it just spreads. The way to get ahead of that is to clean up really, really well. If it's really bad this year, you have basically your aspen defoliated. There, I do have a spray next spring we could help you with. It's called Infuse, I-N-F-U-S-E, Infuse. There, you would spray that next spring just as the leaves start to open up. You spray them right then. That's when that whole leaf disease starts, is right then. So we can spray it with Infuse right then. Now, most trees are not that bad. Cleanliness, we'll just keep it, that's enough. If it's really bad for your tree, come talk to us on the sidebar and we'll help you get that sorted, okay?
Black spots on the roses.
Black spot on the rose is the same thing. That's a leaf spot.
Right.
And it's really bad when it's really when it's had a lot of rain. We see a lot of this leaf spotty stuff. Actually keeps my kids through college. I pay tuition just with leaf disease stuff and solutions and how to solve that. That's again, as you prune up. Now roses, you're not going to prune yet. We're not in Phoenix or Southern California anymore. You want to leave the structure intact through winter. Then we'll actually prune all those things when the harshest of the winter is over. We'll prune up roses in March, and that's where you want to pick off all those spotted leaves, trim things back, rake things up. Then again, get that disease stuff off your property. Don't compost it. Don't chip it. Give it to friends you don't like. I mean, give it to them. You don't want it. Okay, so that's where you pick all that stuff off. If it's really bad, you had a lot of leaf spot, a lot of mildew, I'll actually take the time. This is tedious, but I'll actually pick all the leaves off the plant in March. I'll prune it back, get it the way I want, pick all remaining leaves off, and then I'll spray it with that Infuse and it comes back clean. That's extreme. That's when I've had really bad issues. And this year has been a bad leaf spot. Bad grubs, lots of these white worms. They're really bad this year, and lots of leaf spot. Those are the two main, if I were to summarize all of this year, it was a great growing year, but we had some more leaf spot disease stuff in it. I mean, trees were taken down by grubs this year. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. So is there one other? Yes.
I had an overabundance of spiders. I don't know if it's caused from where I live. But I'm knocking them down twice a day, and it's so annoying. Is it plants or the area?
So, spiders. She's got bad spiders. Okay. Why so many spiders? Well, you've probably got a food source from them. You've got bugs someplace. There's something that's attracting where they're setting up webs going, hey, dinner's tonight. So they're doing you a favor a little bit, but they are a nuisance. I mean, I go through and knock them down once a week. If you do have a lot of spiders, you could spray them with a multi-purpose, this stuff. It's multi-purpose insect spray, just hose down the house. I get little black beetles that come into my basement, which is the theater room, which is where we all lay down on the floor and watch movies. I don't like black beetles crawling over me and spiders in the middle of the... So I'll spray this as a barrier around the edge of the house, the doorways. I don't know where they come from. They just magically show up. I'll use this as spray. You could hose that down and would keep them, thin the numbers at least. But fall is when you do see a lot of spiders. It's just their time to shine. Yeah.
Back to the roses, we read that we need to just take those roses out.
If it's in the canes, yes, but you didn't say that. You said leaf spot on the leaves. That's different. If it's at the graft, definitely it's dead, it's gone, just make the call. If it's just on the leaves, I think that you could clean your way out of that.
So, what's it look like when it's on the graft?
If it's on the graft, what will happen is that black spot will travel. It's eating the sugars in the leaf. It'll travel, go in the cane. You'll see this black streak went through the cane. It'll follow us right back to the graft and eventually kill the graft. It's very, very unusual to see the black spot here. It's more of a more humid area. Their problems. But we've had more rain than usual this year. So we're seeing a few cases of black spot. So you're gonna have to make that gardener's call. If it were my rose, I would try to clean it up. I'd fertilize it real heavy next March. I'd see if it grew its way out of it. If I saw any indication of black spot after next spring's growth, I would make the call early and go, you're out of here. I tried, done. I'd replace it with something new, sexy, fragrant, beautiful, something I haven't grown before. I'd just replace it. That's what I would do. I have about 700 roses showing up, I think April 15th. I mean, all of them will be in bloom. The entire front of the gardens, there will be nothing but roses. Pick one of those. I mean, just by then you'll know.
Yeah.
By May you'll know, did I get it or did I not? Make the call. Yeah.
Blister beetles.
Blister beetles.
Away from you.
So blister beetles, we're seeing this show up right now. In fact,
Yes,
on Facebook, just had a Facebook message over, and I've had several of those just this week. It's a little tiny beetle, about an inch long, very narrow body. They can look almost cartoonish. They can be spotted, striped, gray, brown, black. There's a lot of variety to it. But here's one indication of blister beetle. They come up in swarms. They're never just isolated. They always have hundreds. They'll land, they'll land on like this burning bush and strip it clean. Not one leaf left. That's blister beetle. They'll strip entire ash trees, locusts, certain things. Just come in and they devour everything in its path. Okay? It's like biblical proportions. It's like Moses and the plague was blister beetles. It's that, okay? Strips everything, and they'll do it in just a day or two. It's like you don't have time to wait. You must react now. You see that, react now. They're really bad out in the valley areas especially. Poor Paldo. They've been being nailed. Chino Valley, that North Valley area, they're getting quite a few blister beetles right now. So there, if you see that, what to do? We got a theme going here. Multi-purpose insect spray wipes them right out, okay? If you hit them, they will die. And it's got a repelling action, so it keeps them from spreading and migrating around the yard, eating other things. So I'd spray that area and all the stuff around there to keep them in check. Okay, this one bottle for $19.99 makes 16 gallons. Okay, it goes a long ways. It also puts on an odor where they don't like the smell or the taste, and so it keeps them away. So it'll wipe out blister beetle, grasshoppers, that kind of stuff. Okay?
They keep, I mean, this is the second time we've been hitting blister beetles.
Oh, twice this year.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
like-
impressed.
Like in September.
Oh,
Yeah, well, early September and now.
okay. So she's been hit twice by blister
And every
beetles.
year they keep coming back.
Yeah. So these are swarms. So they fly. Very social. They have to go together. So they'll take flight all at once. And the reason they call them blister beetles is if you were to smack them, you want to be a little careful. They'll actually cause a wart or a blister. They'll actually kill horses if they get in the hay and they eat the hay with a blister beetle. It'll actually kill them. So it's that kind of. It's not super dangerous for you and your dog. We don't go that far, but just walk lightly. If one gets on you, it doesn't hurt you. Just kind of flip them off. But if you were to do this, it would be painful. So just kind of brush them off. Be careful. When you're spraying them, if you're with this multi-purpose insect spray, they'll start to drop right now. I mean, you'll spray, they'll drop. If they drop on you, just go, well, try to not be underneath the thing when you're spraying it, okay? Just some common sense. That's why they call it blister beetles. Some years are worse than others. This is if it stays mild like this, they'll become even more pronounced. They'll become worse. Something to watch. So watch. Kind of keep it on your radar. It's unique to us. We have a lot of blister beetles. Part of it, yeah. This is turning into a Q&A session. This is so easy for me.
I had a lot of them, and I killed them, and they dropped off, and then I came out the next day, and they were moving.
Oh, really?
So I buried them.
If they're moving, no. If
Now
you,
let us lay eggs.
it's just,
There were hundreds of them.
yeah, there are hundreds. So what?
Yeah.
So she had so many, she sprayed them. It took them a little longer to die. So she buried them. Very graceful gardener. Very
Well, I didn't
good.
know what else to do.
Yeah. So there will be so many. I've seen so many, hundreds literally, where they were dropping like rain when you spray them. So may take a day or two to die, or you may need to up the concentrate just a touch. Again, I think this says 2 tablespoons to a gallon. That's enough. You don't need 4 or 5 because if you get it too strong, it can burn leaves. But for deciduous stuff, it doesn't matter so much. Really, if a little bit goes a long way. It's just be aware. There's certain insects we have that are unique to us. You want to track those and know what they are. And then if you don't know, just bring them in. We can ID it in a flash. We can tell you what it is because you're not the only one. It's the entire neighborhood is being hit by tree aphids at the same time. The entire neighborhood's being hit by blister beetles at the same time. Those are two that are unique right now, that are unique to fall. Long gardens that have very long autumn seasons, that's what happens. Okay? Can we move on? Can I go inside the house? Some of your potted plants now? No, I said I moved on already, both of you gals. You go in the
Just
back.
a quick question back to, I'm new to the area, so Southern California.
Welcome
so-
to God's country.
Thank you. So, I've got some pots out that I've placed, but I haven't planted anything because
Okay.
going into winter, I have no idea what to do. So are some of those plants that you pointed out in the beginning fine to sit out in these pots if they're in the right light, right sun for snow and other things to
Oh,
come?
yeah, good
Or-
question. Yeah, all of
You
these
mentioned putting them by your front door, which to me is more protected, so I'm curious about,
right out in the open. All of these plants we mentioned are for winter.
okay.
Pansies, they'll bloom right through winter. It's
that
amazing.
surprises me. Okay.
They'll get snow on them. They'll kind of lay down. You think, oh, they're gone. As soon as the sun comes out, boop, I'm so happy. That's a pansy for you.
Okay.
Kales, they love. In fact, some of your edible stuff, like lettuce. I'm putting some of this Swiss chard. I'm putting in. Lisa and I like green smoothies. Very healthy. So spinach, kale, cabbage, edible. I'll actually put those in my container gardens, and I'll mix them with things like this because they just look good together. But I'm putting some of my edibles because this actually tastes better when it's cool out. You can have a fresh salad for Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. You pick right from your gardens and sprinkle some pansy blossoms on top, and your friends and neighbors will be going, she's a genius. How did you, edible flowers with fresh, all picked, just really, you can do that. We're living in, it's such a mild 4-season climate, you can literally do that here. It's so easy, but it is about timing. So we're talking about timing right now. This is your time when you're transitioning the gardens. I almost think of it as a decorating time. So this is when you put your pumpkins and your mums, and you're just decorating to accessorize through the holidays. And some of those you're doing in your containers, you're just changing out some of those flowers. So you absolutely can have those right now. Swiss chard fresh this morning, and I will have fresh chard right through January. And I'll have fresh kale right through January. So change them out now.
Thank you.
Okay? Absolutely. This one's beautiful. Take a look at that. This is a speckled lettuce.
So that's an edible?
That's an edible organic lettuce, but it's pretty, very nutritious, and you just can't, this is so hard to find in the grocery stores, but so easy to grow out in the yard. In a container, perfect. So easy to grow. It's almost a weed. Okay? In the summer, where people make a mistake, they plant this in May. They wonder why it flames out in the heat of June, because this does not like the heat. It likes the cold. It becomes bitter. The flavor goes off in the summer. It needs to be planted now. Okay, let's go back. Let's hone in. Okay.
You haven't talked at all about bulbs.
Yes.
Isn't this the time to be putting your bulbs in?
Bulbs. Can you plant bulbs? So bulbs now for about Thanksgiving. So when you want to put tulips, daffodils, crocus, all this winter, the spring blooming bulbs, you want to put them in now. I would actually wait a couple of weeks, let it cool down some, because you could plant them, they'll start to come up early. You kind of want the ground to be a little cold. So if you can wait till closer to Thanksgiving, you'd be better. So now's the time to put your bulbs in.
I put mine in containers because I don't have any area, but I put them down, then I can put some of this foliage on top.
Yeah, that's a great approach. Putting bulbs underneath your flowers, and have the bulbs come up through the pansies in between the kales. That's a beautiful look. Yeah. Yeah, just get a pot full of bulbs, kind of ugly. Basically, it's dirt till spring. So you put some dressing on top of it. There's one, let's talk about containers, and then we'll kind of wrap it up with some more questions. Seem okay? Are we about on time, Ken? I forgot my watch. Just, perfect, okay. There's a little pesky gnat that's going to show up. It hasn't quite shown up yet, but it'll become very pronounced about when that first poinsettia shows up. Really track this. If you're bringing poinsettias, usually about Thanksgiving, the poinsettias start coming up, all the fancy colors. Ours will be no different. This is where I really scrutinize our poinsettia growers. I really want to see the greenhouse they're growing in. I don't want to see any issues. There's a little tiny black gnat called a fungus gnat. She loves to lay her eggs in poinsettias and house plants. You see any black gnats, and even one in the display that you're buying from at the front of the grocery store or wherever. Hopefully you're buying all your house plants up from us, but I know that's not reality. Just make sure you verify. You see any issues at all, don't buy one of those plants, because when you bring that thing home, it'll just spread throughout the entire house. It's a little tiny, called a fungus gnat. She'll lay her eggs in the soil, and she basically lives in a larva stage, a maggot stage, a little white worm that eats the roots off those plants. They come up and they bother you. When you look at the iPad, you'll be attracted to the light, to the windows. It's a nuisance, and it's really pronounced here other than other places. If you see that happening, you've got fungus gnats, come talk to us. We'll sell you this. It's called systemic granules. You sprinkle it on top of the surface of the soil, water it in, goes to the soil, kills off the maggot, which disrupts the cycle of the fungus gnats, gets ahead of it. Just put it on your radar. When Kim talked about something, what was that? Come talk to us and go, I got this old black gnat. How do I solve it? This is what we're going to sell you. Okay, it's a little stinky. It's called systemic granules. It's not a very sexy name, not very original. It's a terrible name, but systemic means plant will absorb it, kind of keep the things in check. Mainly it goes to the soil, kills off the larva. Okay, that's one thing. Also, we can start transitioning some of our plants outside to the inside, if you so choose. I'd rather sell you new plants in spring, but some of you, this is gardeners, that's not reality. Some of you are going to bring them and put them in the garage, put them in that crawl space underneath the house, bring them in, use them as a house plant. You can do that. Now's the time. You've got about a 2-week transition. Can I share with you just quickly how to bring them inside? You don't want to just bring them and put them inside your garage, or you'll have worms crawling across the carpet. You'll have spiders making nests in the corners. You just want to take a process to bring them in. First, flush the soil with a lot of water. Just try to drown out any issues, okay? So just fill up that thing with water. I would say your normal watering times 2. You want water flowing out of the bottom. We're trying to get all the potato bugs, earwigs, things that are living up in the bottom of that soil. You want to flush that stuff out. Then I would say clean up, shape, trim, get all that dead foliage. It's probably too big to bring in the house realistically right now. You probably want to trim it back. Let's say a geranium. That's a classic. Begonias. Those all make the transition very, very well. Some of them will even bloom inside the house very, very well. But trim it back so it doesn't take up so much space. So now's the time to shape it, trim it, and clean up all the diseased leaves. So trim it back. When you're all done, spray the foliage with Home Harvest. And I bring you that. I didn't actually intend to go over this topic that heavily. Home Harvest is an organic spray that we make down the store. It's a trigger spray. You spray the foliage, what's left over, and that will kill off any eggs that were laid. There are eggs, there are things on the plant. So this will kill off those eggs, any bugs that are left over. So when you bring that thing inside, they don't hatch and start taking over the inside. Okay? You make that transition, and then lastly, I would say get it used to the dark of your house. Your house is very, very dark. I know you got light switches, but it's not the UV light they're used to. They've been out in full sun. There's time to transition that thing. I would say move it to a little bit darker spot. Let it get used to the dark. Otherwise, what will happen is you'll bring this thing from this light, bright area into your house. It'll just defoliate, just like that. It'll just like drop its leaves. If you take a week, just take it, do all these steps, bring it into, let's say, that overhang the front door, the north side of your house. Thank you, Ken. You're so good. Home Harvest. It's an organic spray, very safe for birds, your pets. It's very safe stuff. You can bring it right inside the house, and it's safe. Okay, if you've got cats, you're going to gnaw around and do stuff, it's safe. Okay, so it's all organic, but it also gets rid of mainly the insects that are going to be on that whatever's remaining. I would just be generous before I brought it inside. Okay. Anyway, that's a transition. If you can bring it into a shaded area, flood it, treat it, spray it, let it sit up next to the house, the north side, a shaded area, and a week later bring it in the house, you should be good to go. You can also store these, have several customers that cut back their geraniums and just keep them underneath that crawl space. A lot of us have that dugout basement area. They just store them down there. They water them real good and then forget about it. Garages, I see a lot of folks storing things in garage. The brighter the garage, the better. And you have to water every once in a while, but not too bad. Main thing, if you're doing that, watch for fungus gnats. Are going to love that environment. So that, remember we covered fungus gnats? We're going to treat that with systemic granule. Kind of watch that one, so keep an eye on it. What else? Or if you lose them, we'll have more in the spring. Be glad. I got one more kid in college. She's only a junior. She just told me, Dad, I'm going to go for my master's. I'm like, okay, I wonder what that costs. Private college, yeah.
I was told that scorpions get into your house through the plants when you bring them in. Is that true?
Okay, let's just do it. Let's do a poll. I don't know how this is going to go down. Let's just ask. How many of you have seen a scorpion in your gardens this year? Only one. That's pretty normal.
You're lucky.
Pretty normal. I would say they can, but if we do this program where you flush, because scorpions do not like wet spaces. They like dry, dark spaces. So if you were to flush them out, you wouldn't transition. Or if you're really worried, don't bring them in the house. Put them in the garage or something. I would say if you could do a cursory spray, take the multi-purpose insect spray and just spray everything. This does have a couple week penetration where they'll crawl, get it on them and keep them at bay. You might be able to kill them off or thin them out. You can get ahead of scorpions. Scorpions are very unusual at this elevation. So you've got a hot, dry spot where they're attracted to it. And something's brought them in. We have more tarantulas than we have scorpions. So I like tarantulas too. So I think you can get ahead of scorpions where you won't have them. With that being said, I do always check my boots when I'm out camping, just in case, because I have been bit by a scorpion. Basically, it's like a bee sting, and then your entire arm goes numb. You can't even use it for like a week. You're kind of going, ugh, it's like that deal. Okay, it's like totally, and if it's bad enough, it can stop your heart, do some stuff. I mean, that's worst case. Go see a doctor. I'm not a physician, although I look like one on TV. Anyway, yeah.
What's your thoughts on malathion?
Oh, I got another man asking my thoughts. I love it. Thank you. My friend, we'll talk afterwards. I'll buy you a cup of coffee. Malathion. Malathion is death in a bottle. It's basically nuclear waste bottled up, and it kills everything in its path. It's great. It's like DDT, only repurposed with malathion on it. If you spray it, it will die. Dogs, children, everything will die. That's the greatest thing about it. The reason I don't sell it here is we're not into chemicals. So I won't sell it in my place. You can still see malathion. I think for a few more years you'll see it on the market. I think it's going to go the way of diazinon, some of the other lethal things that we've seen. But just be careful with it. Don't let your dogs, birds, be careful. So the stuff we sell is either organic or it's a synthetic replica of an organic. Sometimes you get a longer acting thing. That's my take on malathion. That's unique to us. I mean, I'm an organic gardener, but I try to simplify organics because it's such a complicated topic. And so many organic gardeners are so nerdy, you can't even understand what they're saying. So I try not to do that. I try to simplify it. So our fertilizer, it's already pre-mixed. It's 7-4-4. You don't have to mix blood meal and meat meal and feather meal and make your own. We did it for you. We pelletized it. So we made it easy to put down as best we could. Okay, so that's my take. But if you got it, use it, and just be careful with it. So, yeah.
Little white ducks in your plant food.
It's going to be. They've got several things. It's iron, sulfur. That's why we don't call it. Actually, it's not organic. It's all natural. So it's iron, sulfurs. There's some other stuff that makes it go.
They take a long time to break down.
They do take a long time to break down, which is good.
Yeah.
We want it to break down over a 3-month period. That was the design. That's why it works. Okay? Yeah.
What do you put in to get rid of the grubs in the garden? And when do you
Grubs in the garden. So they're still pretty high. They're still active. Grubs, you know what those are? The white C-shaped worms. They can be anywhere from this big to, I've seen, someone just brought one in that was 4 inches long. I mean, it looked like an alien life form's going to suck on your jugular vein or something. I mean, they had named him Spot. I mean, it just had him in a jar. It's beautiful. It's creeping around on eat your face. Huge. So grubs come in different forms. It's a larva stage of a beetle. So beetles, they're larva stage. They're flying around at night. They come and lay eggs. They live most of their lives in a larva stage called a grub. They can live up to 5 years in the ground before they come out as a beetle. Generally a couple of years, most beetles. What to do? We actually have a grub killer. It's a granular that if you've had a lot of grubs, I would encourage you to do that. What will happen is in a couple of weeks, the grubs will start to burrow down and they'll live through winter about 2-3 feet down. They're impossible to kill at that point. You just wait it out until they come up in spring and start eating your spring stuff, trees, shrubs, that kind of stuff. You bait them then. You can put grub killer down now and it would be highly effective against them, so you wouldn't have them next spring. Also, they've been laying eggs all summer, and so some of them already hatched, and they're real small, they'll go down deep. It'll actually start you clean till next monsoon season when they show up again. So that's a grub killer. Yeah.
Will it kill the earthworms if you don't want to kill them?
No, it's very specific to, I haven't found they might kill a earthworm, but I'm not so worried. Earthworms come back so quickly, grubs do not. Grubs need to be laid by another beetle laying eggs in your garden. That's how they're introduced.
Well, what is that ball behind you that says something about grubs?
This is called a pot popper. This is grubs. Mainly we have this size. It's not big enough for a garden. This is big enough for a house plant.
Okay.
This is a nematode. It's an organic or beneficial insect that burrows down through the soil looking for worms, grubs, or fungus gnats. Mainly this is for fungus gnats, especially if you have a lot of pets, cats, cat owners. Cats are mischievous. They seem to want to dig puppies. They want to get in and just tear things up where you don't want to use a chemical. This would be the solution for that.
Okay.
This is a nematode that you'd use in the spring. I actually have commercial size, big, does 2,000 square feet nematodes for vegetable gardens, that area, highly effective. Out my own yard, most of the landscape, I'm an organic gardener, except I like efficiencies, and sometimes I'll just sprinkle the grub killer because it's easy, but I never put it where I'm going to have animals, my pets, because they're my kids now, and I don't ever put it where I'm worried about my eating, my vegetable gardens, that kind of stuff. So this is where I use my containers. Plus, it's fun to throw around.
Except my
Cubs.
kittens grab the little bag.
Oh, did they? So it's a little bag that we put the nematodes in, and you place them on your houseplants. And so the kittens came and played with the bag.
Oh yeah.
Not to worry, it was not, by then all the nematodes have been replaced, and nematodes are not dangerous to anyone unless you're a worm.
So they move down in fairly
They move in the
quickly.
soil almost immediately.
Okay,
I mean, as soon as you add water, they're in the soil. So that's why you use organics or beneficial insects. We're trying to introduce more beneficial insects, ladybugs, praying mantis, lacewings, because they're so easy. The negative is they're kind of complicated and they're alive. So they fly around and they move, and I put ladybugs out in the garden and the next day they're gone. You sold me ladybugs, where are they? There's a training process. We're trying to get better at that. But we sell probably 1,000 things of ladybugs every year. And I release ladybugs in the nursery, and not so much for the insects, but also for the kids. Because if kids, gardeners, we're all kids, right? You see a ladybug, it's like a sign of good luck or something. So we just release them around. In my own gardens, I do the same thing. When the grandkids come over, we go looking for ladybugs. And we always find them if we've released some in the gardens. Plus they're beneficial. Okay, one last question, and then I'll just hang around because it seems like there's a lot of questions going on. But for the live audience, thanks for tuning in. We'll be here next Saturday at 9:30, same thing. I'll answer one more question, then I'll just hang out and kind of feed more questions, okay? So at least we can get the cameras up.